That's the end of my presentation. It is time for Q&A.
I actually have a question about Sweden and Taiwan, because it's just been in the news that the Skatteverket changed their classification of Taiwan from Republic of Taiwan to Taiwan Province of China. How has the reaction been? What is the reaction at the embassy, and what do you hope? Do you hope it's to be changed back again soon?
Yes, we hope it would be changed back. However, as a diplomat, an official diplomat in Sweden, I always say my job is to make friends, not to offend people. So as a diplomat, I have to be very polite. This is a domestic issue. One agency in Sweden government decided that way, saying that it is in accordance with ISO 3661. And there are two countries, not just Taiwan. It includes St. Lucia. Their past use of the name was not coherent, not consistent. So very, reasonable reasons by the tax agency were given for this change. However, for practical reasons, it is not practical. Because now if you let Taiwan people, Taiwanese, who become Swedish citizens, become your fellow countrymen, okay? Taking your citizenship, using your passport, now carries a passport that says, this person from Taiwan, province of China. Problems may arise because Taiwanese can go to 160 some countries without visa. Our friends from China cannot. They still don't enjoy that privilege, and they have my sympathy. They should, okay, if the government is different. If they enjoy universal value, then the people of China would also enjoy the same kind of treatment. So I feel for them. But then, if the Taiwanese citizens from Sweden now travel in big cities, airports, are stopped and questioned for just 1 minute, 5 minutes, leaving the airport much later than the other people, travelers. They feel bad. They feel bad. They feel troubled. Okay? Now, if you want to do business and pay tax or make applications in Taiwan, but now it says, oh, Taiwan, province of China. So the application goes to Beijing. Okay? A lot of people would do it. If you, in Chinese term, Deng Xiaoping or Mao Zedong's term, if you tell a lie 100 times, it becomes truth. If you tell the people of the world, Taiwan, province of China, long enough, people of the world believe it is true. But it is not practically good. Right? Applications may go to China, mail boxes, mail pouches may go through China. If companies, 117 companies from Sweden invest in Taiwan, we appreciate that, including 5 IKEA stores. Small Taiwan has 5 IKEA stores. Every day people queue up to eat Swedish meatball. Not to say Volvo cars, not to say, although it is owned by Chinese people. Scania trucks, H&M, you name it, 117 companies invest in Taiwan. Good for Sweden, good for Taiwan. And we just opened up our beef import market for Sweden, starting this year, or literally last November. All good things between Sweden and China. We exchange students between 20 universities here and 20 universities in Taiwan, including this wonderful university. Now, if from now on, mistakes or misunderstandings or inconvenience or even disrespect happen to innocent people carrying the name Taiwan, province of China, you know what can happen. You don't even want 1 minute of insult or embarrassment if it is your citizen, right? So maybe, everybody can help tell it on the mountains and say, turn it back, or at least name Taiwan, Taiwan. Nothing less, nothing more. Just say Taiwan. It's geographical name. It doesn't have anything to do with politics. Thank you for your question. I was trying to be polite by not mentioning that myself. Okay, next question.
I would like to ask, looking at the news that came out of China in the last days, do you think there might be a positive influence that Taiwan can have on China in the future in terms of democratic development, in terms of democratic transition, both on the political, on the government level, but also maybe on the level of the normal people?
Why Taiwan matters? Now, China's people do not enjoy full-fledged democracy, freedom of expression, freedom of religion. We know that. They're as good people as each one of us. They deserve to enjoy freedom of all kinds, respect of all levels, gender, everything. But they don't, unfortunately. I feel for them because of their system. Now, there's one area, one place that the people of the world can challenge China and say, they are Chinese people also in Taiwan. Just like there are Chinese people, a lot of them in Singapore. But why the Chinese people with the same cultural background, 5,000 years, 3,000 years, can do democracy in Taiwan, elect their own president, and nothing bad happens? Why not you? So there is a way of comparison. There's a way of urging them to change. If Taiwan does not continue to exist, if Taiwan is taken back or willfully goes back to China now, China may say, voila, things done. All the other guys in the world say no more. We are we, China. We do what we want. There is no comparison anymore. Okay? Democracy, freedom, the respect of all rights. So you still have Taiwan to use as a beacon for the people of China. I'm happy for them that they enjoy high level of economy. The people of China now go around the world as, rich tourists. They buy this, they buy that, which is good. Everybody should enjoy, good life. But in terms of values, of universal values, of freedom and democracy and freedom to express, I must say that when President Xi Jinping become now the unlimited president, the people of China cannot use his last name anymore. You cannot write idioms that begins with the word Xi. When you Google, you don't find that. You don't find idioms that you use for 3,000 years beginning with the word Xi. That happened in Ming Dynasty, and we call that in Chinese terms, word poisoning. If you use the wrong word, namely the emperor's last name. If the emperor is Chu, you better not use the word Chu in your language every day. If you say Chu, cut your head. That's what happened in historic China, or spank you for 100 times at least. Okay, that's called imprisonment by using the wrong word. And now it's happening in 21st century China. You cannot Google and find word beginning with C. Okay? Now, isn't that terrible? You don't have religious freedom. If you believe in this, believe in that, like Catholics, Vatican is going to discuss naming of bishop, right? China didn't want to agree to Vatican for the naming of bishops. But now China says, oh, in a certain way we will. So they reach some kind of agreement now, and seemingly Vatican is reaching diplomatic tie with China if that issue is solved. But that's not good for the Catholics in China, because this is not real freedom of belief. Just one example. There are other religions. I thank you for that question. That's why Taiwan matters in terms of upholding universal value that we all enjoy and take it for granted. But it is not so in China, honestly.
Thank you for your very informative lecture. I am a political science and economics student here, and the first year here at the university, I took a course on economic history, specifically economic history in Southeast Asia, including Taiwan. During that that course, there was a really lack of emphasis on the US aid to Taiwan and its role in developing its economy. So my question to you is, in your view and based on what you know, how important was it indeed? Or do you think that there might be like some ideological or political incentive to de-emphasize the US aid and instead emphasize like free market as a sort of explanation for why they succeeded, rather than it being a result of US aid?
But first of all, to answer your question, I want to express Taiwan's thanks to the United Nations before 1971 and United States aid. When nobody else was helping Taiwan much, United States was helping Taiwan throughout those years. And our development of agriculture into light industry, into high-tech industry were mostly helped by United Nations before 1971 and United Nations aid after 1971. Until now, it is still the biggest supporter of Taiwan's democracy and development. But back to why the Western world, in this part of the world, did not know so much about it, whether it was purposely disregarded. I don't want to say it is purposely disregarded, but it is true of international politics or international relationships that you pay more attention to your neighborhood in your region. It is more important to care about things happening right next to your countries. That's why you have so much things to worry about here in Europe already. Why would you worry about a country so little that you had a hard time finding, located in the world map, so many miles away? So if people do not know Taiwan, it is our problem, not your problem, because we have to bring ourselves to you. You don't deserve to know. You don't deserve to know us, because there's so many countries. Do we know a lot about Croatia? Do we know a lot about Montenegro? They're also very important countries, but do we? No. Why? We don't have time to, and they don't bring themselves to us. That's the reason. Okay? So, although Taiwan was developing and developing into a miracle, into Asia's four little tigers, and in the 1980s, Taiwan's democratization was so good. But this part of Europe was paying attention to what's happening in East Europe. The fall of communism, the CIS countries, because it's closer to you, it's in your neighborhood. That's the reason why. Okay, but I thank you now for being interested in knowing more about that part of the world in general, and Taiwan in particular. As I said, you're all invited to see Taiwan in person. Google the word Taiwan, take video, and watch how the international young student backpackers are enjoying their trip in Taiwan. Don't let me tell you, let them tell you. Okay, thank you.
Students from Beijing, and I'm from China, Beijing, and I also study in Xiamen, which is the city just at opposite of the Taiwan Strait to Taiwan. So I want to bring some of my personal experience here for whenever I learn history and I have my memory, I was always taught and learned that Taiwan is a part of China. I feel really sorry and sad about the history that Qing Dynasty gave Taiwan away to a part from China. But also when I study in Xiamen, I see that there is a very huge, large statue of Zheng Chenggong, which he to take Taiwan from Dutch. And then there is very huge brand that says one country and one system. And also took a ship trip to the strait that the tour guide said that look at that is the island of Taiwan and that is part of China. So I can feel that the strong feelings that in China now we want that the Taiwan to be together. But that's how I learned. But after I go abroad, I went here. There are people kept asking me that how do you think about China and Taiwan? Is Taiwan a part of China? Not only Taiwan, but also Hong Kong and maybe a little bit of Macau. So, and also had friends who are from Taiwan. They think that Taiwan is Taiwan, but not part of China. So I want to keep a friendship with them, so I kind of avoid this kind of topic. Yeah, so I want to ask you, what do you think about the future of Taiwan and mainland China? Do you think that we keep avoiding this topic of reunification, or we will see what's happening or something for the future?
My ancestors came from Fujian 400 years ago, following Koxinga, earlier Taiwan immigrants. My ancestors did not suffer the massacre that took place in 1947 by the Nationalist Army to the Taiwanese when they retreated to Taiwan and didn't like the Taiwanese people. So there was a massacre. So there were mixed feelings. The history is full of mixed feelings for every country, everywhere. Okay, I was in Beijing 1991, spring, very cold, so cold. I was up on the Great Wall, and no matter how much clothing I had on, it was still biting cold. Okay, I had very good experience in Beijing and Shanghai when I met with not the officials, but the street people, the common citizens of China. I think in history, they're just as good when my ancestors were in China. We're all Chinese people with the Confucius way of thinking. The Cultural Revolution could not rid the Chinese people of that way of thinking, namely obeying your emperor, obeying your magistrate, obeying your lawyer, your judge, obeying your parents, obeying, until now, the whole people of China choose to obey Xi Jinping, because I, the international famous artist in Australia, says Chinese people in history, no matter what happened in China now, they still believe in imperialism. But that's not the question. The question is very good, because you ask why there are still arguments between whether Taiwan should go back to China or whether Taiwan still should keep resisting that. Mixed feelings. We should only leave it to time. Because in history of China, if you remember the Three Kingdoms dynasty, among the Chinese kingdoms, they were divided for how long? 100 years? There were periods in China when China was divided into 15 countries, 10 countries, 5 dynasties for 100 or 90 years. So it happens. It happened in the Chinese history. Okay, one poet in Chinese history says, the world keeps dividing up and reunifying, dividing up and reunifying. If you are divided long enough, you will reunify. Like Europe, if you're unified long enough, you want to be divided. That's the nature of the world. It's universal rule. So leave it, let it be. If Taiwan was given away by Qing dynasty and the people of Taiwan still bear that grudge, not willing to go back, leave them alone, like a child who was chased away from home, and he wants to be independent, making his life outside, let him stay outside for as long as possible. And someday, if he feels tired, or if he thinks that you're so good, nobody can, pass you, you're so good, you're better than USA, we want to join you, let them join you back at that time. I think that's democracy, that's free will, that's free choice. We should allow that. Now that we have stayed in the West for long enough, I've been a global person since 1985. I've been in USA for 20 years. I've been in in Central America. I've been in East Caribbean. I've been in the South Pacific. I've seen the world. I know it is only possible if people bear with people, allow people their freedom, like the people of Singapore. Okay, to call Taiwan a province of China is literally calling Singapore a state of Malaysia now. But Singapore is not a state of Malaysia, although they are Malaysians, most of them. A lot of them are Chinese ethnics. So, we do things in the practical way. The people of China and Taiwan should not hate each other. Not at all. I love the people of China when I visited them in Beijing and Shanghai. Don't take me wrong. And we want good things to happen between the two sides of the same Chinese people. Because our ancestors taught us to be nice to each other, to bear with each other. Okay, 忠恕, right? That's what Confucius taught us to be, right? To bear with each other. We should do that. If Taiwan people want to be independent for a while, let them be and do business with them, right? So there are good business going in between. But then who knows? In 50 years, in 100 years, something happens. The two sides may become one. Or even if it doesn't happen, like Singapore and Malaysia, have we seen anything bad between Singapore and Malaysia? Although Singapore split with Malaysia? No, all good things, right? So nothing bad will happen, right? It's ironic that at home we encourage independence. Hey, you go independent. Don't stay home and eat, your parents out, right? Here is a go out and leave home at 18, be independent. We praise independence. We embrace independence when it is at home. But when it happens to country, then people don't like independence. It is ironic. It is very ironic. I don't know why myself, but let's hope for good things to happen for all the people of the whole Chinese area. Okay? Thank you. Next question.